Oh man, it's a crazy journey here. I went from, crazy journey, but my sports fandom that got me to the point now where I got my own channel, or was one of my old high school friends that still keep in touch with it, knows I got a YouTube channel, I got my own little ESPN now. And this right here, interview where I'm doing this, narrative, little self-interview. This is where I do the 3-point blitz during the spring, sometimes during the summer when it's not too hot out. But especially during the spring, this is where I do this outside. And now here I am talking about it. We start though, but it all goes back to my early childhood. It started in my household when I was young. Really around 4 or 5, really 5 years old. But that also has to do with my dad. My dad was, big sports fan. My mom to some extent too, but that's really where it all started with from my parents, and it passed on to me. Remember, my dad was a season ticket holder for the Eagles, so there was a few times he even started off. One of the early memories for me, there was a preseason game. August 24th, 2000 was a preseason game. That was my first time attending. Then the next year he attended another preseason game. Now, I didn't realize at the time what was going on in 2001. I just remember us leaving and asking what happened. My dad said the game got canceled. Now, at the time, I didn't understand why it was canceled, but ultimately, looking back now, it kind of makes sense, though. And that was also part of the Eagles, about Veterans Stadium, that I've learned in the years since, that home field advantage aspect the Eagles had with the Eagles and Phillies sharing the stadium. The baseball infield line was something that players from opposing teams were concerned with, and that gave the Eagles an advantage in home games at the Vet. But I did actually have the privilege, at least, of attending Veterans Stadium of 2003, the Eagles' very first game at Lincoln Financial Field. It wasn't the Monday night opener against the Bucks. That was the first regular season game. It was a preseason game against the Patriots. And I remember being there. You had the PA announcer, welcome to Lincoln Financial Field for the very first time, because it was technically the first game played there. So I got to see that in person. I got to see the technically the first game at Lincoln Financial Field in person, which was cool. I remember actually a couple weeks prior to that, my dad took me and a few of his friends that went for the game, the home games of the season ticket pass he had, to a tour of the stadium. Like, I remember it was like a little mini tour, like him, a few of his friends. One of them was a veteran, I think. And we went up there, and basically we got a tour of the stadium, and I was basically the tag-along. I was the tag-along kid going into 3rd grade at the time, so we got to see it there. I remember we stopped at a restaurant afterwards, so some of these stories, I do have some early memories of attending games. Most of my memories came from my childhood. This might have been right around the time of the Falcons game. I think this was right around the time of the Falcons game. Right, the NFC Championship game that sent us to Super Bowl 39. Speaking of Super Bowl 39 from that season, you got McNabb, Westbrook, T.O. trio. This is big from 2004, a little fun biography in the back. I still keep that upstairs. I didn't have that in the background set to some of my YouTube videos. Right here, this was one of 2 main youth athletic spots growing up. Right here, the Brigantine Rams football field. Lots of memories at this place. There right ahead, you got the score box that we had during the games. the bleachers where parents and other supportive family members sat. A lot of fun over at this place. And over here you had one of the other baseball parks, basketball hoops, skateboard rink. It's a lot of fun over here. This is the area, one of 2 youth athletic spots when I was growing up. Got the basketball court, which I have many memories of being on throughout grade and even high school a little bit, early on, freshman, sophomore year. Had a lot of fun over here. A lot of free shoot-arounds, 1-on-1s, 2-on-2s, and if we even got up to 8 kids, 4-on-4 games. It was straight ahead. We had the soccer nets. I played here a few times in elementary school. A few fun memories. Even have one fun memory of falling. I took a big stumble forward, fell down, and got right back up. All the coaches stopped and they were, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm okay." Popped right back up. And then straight ahead, this was where baseball and softball games were played. I didn't actually play myself, but I did show up a few times, support some friends. And back in elementary school, one time went to a friend's birthday party here, which my parents would bring me here on a few occasions on the weekends back in elementary school. The greenhouse higher up in the air, that's what house I grew up in. It's a lot different now. It's got different owners. There's an added room to it, right with that window tilted out that the new owners added to it. Remember that picture I showed of me with the Eagles coat on? That grass right there is where it happened at. A lot of memories in this house between playing video games, watching football with my family, watching the Sixers with Allen Iverson. So many fun memories. Watching boxing with my dad on Saturday nights, HBO and Showtime. A lot of memories in this house, doing my homework there. And the crazy part is the school was just up the block. You see where that church is? Kind of all the way down, the white building. A little bit further up to the left was where my school was. So when I got to 7th, 8th grade, I was old enough to walk. That being my elementary and middle school. Come springtime, I'd be walking to and back from school. But I can't help but to get a little bit nostalgic and appreciative looking at this house. No, even though it's changed, the owners have changed, the design's changed, it's still the house I grew up in. I can't help but get the feeling of nostalgia and appreciation. This used to be where a great spot for me to walk with a dog or tag along when my dad was walking my dog. So one of my favorites, 2003. I remember Monday night. It was in December. The Eagles were playing the Dolphins Monday night that season. It might have been week 15, I think it was. Family vacation around that time. We had a hotel by Miami Beach. We came in Saturday night. Went up there. Which was the good thing about with me being in 3rd grade. They had a pool, so at least I could go in the pool and swim while. And so my parents sat at the bar because it was a Monday game. I remember Sunday sitting by the pool and watching football while I was just sitting in the pool. And I remember you had the Falcons playing the Colts in the afternoon with Peyton Manning and Michael Vick. Colts ended up blowing out the Falcons. Remember you had a Packers-Chargers game at 4 o'clock with Brett Favre and company versus LaDainian Tomlinson and Antonio Gates in the early years there. I think the Sunday night game was Giants and Saints, if I remember. And come Monday, we took a little walk on the beach. And I remember they actually had a bus for us Eagles fans. We went to the game. We had nice little seats. And that was the Monday night game. If you Eagles fans watch this, remember it was the 38-24. Remember they went back and forth through majority of the game. Then it was 7-7, 14-14. Eventually, it was 24-24. Eagles scored to go 30, had 1-24, and then they scored the final touchdown. If you guys remember, it was the opening play. McNabb hit this bomb to James Thrash to put him in Dolphins territory. Then they followed up with a quick touchdown. Remember, when I was in high school one time, I got the nickname Nicky Steez from a classmate. He actually came up and coined the nickname. And it was something I ran with for a little bit. I remember this was during Freestyle Friday. It was a big hip-hop trend. Sometimes we create our own little mini freestyles during lunch or in homeroom on Fridays. Sometimes we'd be a little bit careful what we incorporated into the freestyles, but we did create them, and that's So I was looking for a name for it, and that's where one of my classmates came up with the name Nicky Steez. So we did that when I was in high school. Then after high school, when I started to get a little more serious about life, I dropped the Nicky Steez persona. Now that I was out of high school, Freestyle Friday was no longer a thing we were doing. But it did. I always kind of had that in my back pocket. I'm like, you know what? I'm not using that name, but if ever one day in my life, I remember sitting there when I decided, you know what? I'm going to drop the whole Nicky Steez thing. I'm no longer in high school. That's not going to apply anymore. And I remember sitting there. I was waiting on to pick up food at a local local takeout place, and I always had a lot of time to think. So I was thinking about some of the new things. This is when I started working full time. So right, I was legally adult, old enough to work full time. So I started thinking about, all right, here's some of the changes I got to start making. And that was one of them that came to mind. But as I was thinking about it, I'm thinking in the back of my head, if I ever one day need a screen name for anything, I can always reuse that Nicky Steez name. All of a sudden around, it's now my YouTube name. So even though that classmate's now, I believe out in Texas last time I heard, a few years back, going on to his separate ventures, I'm forever grateful for him for coming up with that name. So I'll always feel internally some gratitude. And it all started. Then come around COVID time. It was all happening. I talked about this on Inside the Mind with Nicky Steez back in early June 2024 with Mitch. That's where it started. But it really mainly started in the fall as the weather was getting colder. Because during the spring and summer with COVID, at least when the weather was warm, I could go outside. Even on days during the summer where there really wasn't anywhere to go, I at least had time to just sit in my backyard, relax, enjoy. I had sunscreen by me, and that at least kept me outdoors during that time. Then as we got toward the fall, we still had a similar situation, and there was, going to the gym, but outside of that, there weren't as many days to step outside and take walks with the weather starting to get colder. So I'm like, all right, now I need to do a little more something that's indoors. And then that's when I started to go toward making YouTube videos. And I
know this. I've been a big supporter of you, so
started during COVID, because especially during that time period we were on lockdown, there was very limited stuff to do. It just dragged out throughout 2020. Finally, by the fall, all I really had was just working for a few hours at the job I was at the time, a handful of days, going to the gym, taking a walk. I needed something else in there in my life. So I started doing YouTube. At first, I just started trying to do blog videos, but then I remember really where it started. It was late 2020. I just decided to drop a rant after the Eagles lost to the Cowboys in Week 16. It wasn't the best put together rant, but once I did it and I got over 100 views, I'm like, all right, I got something going here. YouTube, Nicky Steez back again. This one I'm going straight off the top of my head, no notes. So as of today, the Philadelphia Eagles are officially eliminated from the playoffs. They lost to the Dallas Cowboys 37-17, puts them at 4-10-1 for the season. And well, honestly, this is what the Eagles get. You saw the game. You saw how bad the defense looked. You saw Ezekiel Elliott run all over us. And you saw Andy Dalton play like a superstar for the first time in years. First time in a long time Andy Dalton looked like a superstar against that Eagles. And this was from the early days. I was trying to do it professionally, as in trying to emulate a professional announcer, but obviously this part wasn't really the most intriguing part. But that's something that I've worked on in the years since, once practiced by being in front of the camera, recording and found my own stick. So you had Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, for their total stats, averaged over 20 yards per reception, which meant Andy Dalton was throwing long balls downfield. We had Gallup, Cooper, CeeDee Lamb. The Eagles secondary could not stop the Cowboys from completing long passes. The combination of those three. Like I said, Ezekiel Elliott ran all over us for over 100 yards on 19 carries, and the defense looked absolutely terrible. As far as the offense goes, I said in a video before the Eagles bench Carson for Jalen that bringing in Jalen would not solve all their problems. And even though this wasn't the best put together video, as you can tell, in the years since, I put together much more well thought out and articulate videos with varying talking points instead of repeating the same lines. But the one main thing that was true that did help my credibility from the view surge for a beginner was that, hey, I was right about Jalen Hurts starting, not solving all the problems, which did end up being the case because Jalen Hurts came in that season and he was better statistically than Carson Wentz. They beat the Saints when the Saints were starting Taysom Hill. They had a close game against the Cardinals where their offense played better, but they still fell short. And then the Cowboys game, first half, Jalen Hurts played good, but ultimately the Eagles' offensive line was struggling. That they were also dealing with injuries that year. And this was when you had a on the decline Brandon Brooks. Lane Johnson may have been injured. Kelsey may have been in and out of the lineup. This was pre-Landon Dickerson. So that was it. And I think those takes did help with the credibility of it. I remember the one day I remember the most, like the first like real fun day doing this was actually the week 17 game against Washington, because this was the last season we had 17-week schedule when we pulled Hurts for Sudfeld and tanked in Doug Peterson's final game. I remember it was on Philly Mike's podcast. Philly Mike at the time, I remember his live stream for it. I tuned into the chat. Someone created the perfect joke referring to Nate Sudfeld, who came into the game for Jalen Hurts, as Nate Tankfeld. A few weeks later, he was doing a call-in stream. This was my first time actually appearing on anybody's stream at all. I came on here just for a few minutes. He gave me my thoughts on the Eagles, Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts situation. This was before the trade. I started tuning in more to other Philly content creators' chats, trying to get my name out there, eventually try to get more people to notice, and it did to some degree work. That was around the time, for me, luckily, Desert Eagle 90, who's a long-time Eagles content creator. He's been around since 2016-ish. That's when I first followed him, and this was long before I created any YouTube videos. And I remember he was sharing some up-and-coming Eagles content creators' channels to try to get people. And he actually shared my channel, which at the time as a beginner, that was a big deal. That was like my first I made it moment as far as YouTube goes. A guy who I'd been a fan of for a while recommending my channel as a beginner, that was a huge honor. And then I remember later there was another call-in show with Tone DeShields, and now known as Chalk It Up Sports. This was, I think, a few weeks later. We were talking about that. We were talking about Howie Roseman. Remember, this was before he developed a good reputation, because up to this point, Howie Roseman had a few poor drafts. He had the 2020 draft taking Jalen Reagor. So at the time, me and EC1, who was in on that stream, we were obviously not fans of Howie Roseman at the time. And I even remember when Howie, a few months later, when we initially traded back, we initially had the number 6 pick. We traded back to like the 15th. Then we traded up draft night to the 10th, ended up taking Devontae Smith. But at the time, because Howie had not proven to me that he was an effective GM. So when we first initially traded back from 6 to 15, I came on here ranting and said, fire Howie Roseman, because when it happened, it was March 26, 2021. It happened. And I titled it, Eagles trade number 6 pick, #fire Howie Roseman. And I got 7 likes off of it, because at the time, we as Eagles fans were like, nah, we did not give him the benefit of the doubt. Look at the comment section right here. EC12 now, EC1 football, thumbs up. if you excuse me, I'm going to go feed myself a pack of wolves. This 3-team trade is terrible. You saw, and this was one of my most commented videos at the time. I got some time before work. Is there anything going on in football world? Free agency? Let me take a look. Let's see. Okay. All right, Eagles, what did they do? What the? Seriously, what the did we just do? You could tell at the time I did not give him the benefit of the doubt. That was one of my other early videos I remember for the interaction. But this is at the time, really, it was just videos, try to get it out there, get the most views possible. And some of those videos personally were fun to record, but in the long haul, it wasn't best. I'm glad that the one good thing about YouTube is they came up with the YouTube Shorts feature, because those YouTube videos weren't really great. And with the algorithm and YouTube favoring like the big name channels run by companies with a lot of money in sports, politics, business, stock market trading tips, any type of, pretty much anything on there. You know, like IGN with their movies, you know, anything. It's a problem because it's hard to get your videos out there when you got all these corporate companies with their channels, like the NFL, NBA, for sports, you know. Their videos are going to get the most views because they have the most followers, and the algorithm's going to push it out there. Dude, it was really just a lot of experimenting throughout my channel. A lot of experimenting with recording videos in different scenery, trying to record videos as soon as it happened when it came to the Eagles and some of the Sixers as well, because that was also that 2021 season with the Sixers where we got the number 1 seed, we lost to the Hawks in the second round. I remember I dropped the hammer in a rant on Ben Simmons afterward. I dropped the hammer on him. And that was what my first year was, just experimenting on the Eagles Sixers related content, getting myself out there, getting recognized. The main ones I was recognized early on were Team the Building, Niche, as far as YouTube content creators go. Sometimes I come in, support, either through the chat or sometimes on the live call shows, Chalk It Up Sports, aka Tony Shields, Philly Talk Podcast, aka Philly Mike, and that was the early group.